Welcome back, everybody, to the Aaron's High Cap Adventure Radio program, March 2nd, 2019. We're here live for another 24 minutes, and to my left sits Bill Whitmire, Republican Chair from Milam County, and, of course, the famous radio host for Bleacher Bum Radio that is on before my program. Bill, welcome to the studio again. How you doing?
Thank you. That's great. Doing great. A little cold, but all right.
All right. Sounds good. Hey, look, I got you on because there was just too much going on in the news. I was getting overloaded, and I had to text you and say, Bill, check this crap out. Okay.
Which piece of crap?
Well, let's talk about crap.
There's a bunch of it.
Let's talk about this POS here. This senator from Nebraska. What's his name here?
Ernie Chambers.
Ernie Chambers.
He can't even show up dressed and decent. He wears a sweatshirt to the Senate chambers. That right there should tell you where he's coming from right off the bat. Doesn't even have enough respect for his office or the fact that people elected him to office to dress decently.
It makes me wonder about the people who elected him. What the hell's going on with them? Now, ladies and gentlemen, if you weren't paying attention this morning or you didn't get a chance to hear the show at around 10:10, I did an observation piece concerning this person.
Yeah, just go with person. It's good.
He was ragging out the flag. He's saying that rag. I don't even bow down or salute or whatever he does to the rag, which is the flag. And I was basically saying that flag is beautiful. It's absolutely beautiful. It's almost the most perfect thing out there. It represents almost perfection. It is us, the human being, who lives underneath that flag, who causes the problems. But it allows us, this country, the historical documents, the rule of law that we have, it allows us the opportunities to make ourselves better. It's just a matter if we're going to do it or not. But to rag out, especially for all the fallen who have protected the rights that we have here, that we share in this country, for him to say something like that, he's a POS. That's what he is.
Well, you get people elected into office, and this one jumps out at you, and this is a guy from Nebraska. Nebraska, the heartland, and but they're everywhere, and they don't understand they don't understand history. They don't understand where they're coming from. They don't have that respect. They didn't have people that served or whatever, or they never served, and so they come up and they have these sort of opinions about things, or they call things, like in this case, call the American flag a rag. And it offends a lot of people, not just veterans, but a lot of people, and it is an offensive remark in amongst itself.
Bill, I wanted to avoid this just because people may take it wrong, but I don't care. I want to say it. Look, I'm 56 years old, born in 63, lived in New York, lived in a city that was very racially divided. It was like 50-50, okay? Mm-hmm. And back then, we had riots, the whole works. I'd get beat up, assaulted, the whole works. My whole life, I've been working jobs, busting my rear end, finding a job. When one was gone, I'd go find another one. I'd make opportunities happen for myself. And granted, I have white skin, but I don't care. Anybody who starts talking racism is a racist themselves. You should not see color. Color has no attribute here. It is your character. Like Martin Luther King said, it is your character that we should be judging, not the color of your skin. That is just so ignorant and stupid for someone, because they have black skin, yellow skin, white skin, or whatever, to be looked upon or whatever. You're going to have people that do that, but you must become better than that. You must say, that's the way it is. I'm moving on to the next place, and I'm going to accomplish what I want to get accomplished, not what people are going to try and put me down for, okay? So this scumbag here, he's got the opportunity. He's taken all the past history and making it personal on him, when he should be saying, that's history, let's move on, let's be better than this, and let's get stuff done in the future.
Well, look at what was the centerpiece of just about every demonstration that MLK had. What was the centerpiece of just about every demonstration he had? The flag. Yeah, you look at his biggest speeches, the biggest things they did, the march on the Selma Bridge. When you look at that march back in the 60s, you look at the march, that the 50th anniversary that Obama attended, and everybody that attended, and it was heavily black, and there were no flags. You look at the original march in the 60s, and there were a lot of mixed colors, white, brown, black, all the different colors, and the American flag was carried by probably a third of the people in that march. And the reason that flag was held was because it was deemed that this is America, where everybody's supposed to be free, and this is what we're fighting for, and this is what we stand for. And we've lost that to the fact where now you can have a senator stand up in the middle of the Nebraska legislature and call the American flag a rag. I'm not here for this rag. And that's what essentially has happened. It's a lack of education. We talk about it when you and I talked about guns and how people treat guns now, and how there's not that education on gun safety or in gun use. There's not that education in the country either. You see someone who's like AOC, who just gets bashed all the time, but all she has to do to get bashed is open her mouth. The other day she was asked about the Palestinians and how that relationship with Israel goes, and she said, anytime a country like Israel can occupy another country like Palestine, Palestine's not a country, never was. It's a region. The people are called Palestinians because they're from that region. People that are from the Appalachian part of America are called Appalachians, but that's not a country. That's a region. Palestine is a region of the Middle East. And because these people, and her degree is in foreign relations. That's what's amazing. It's in foreign relations, and she doesn't even get that. And so, and that's a problem that permeates society throughout. Is people, government doesn't affect them. That's the way they feel. But it doesn't affect me, so I don't need to really know about what's going on.
You promote idiocy and you promote lies long enough, and the idiocy and the lies become the truth.
Perception becomes reality, and that is the perceived notion. We talked about it a little bit before I came on. We were sitting out in the green room, whatever you want to call the outside corridor, and we were talking, how can we get people more interested in politics, how we can get them to pay attention in politics and to vote more. And it's very simple. When the federal government passes their budget, they pass their budget, then they turn around and they pass a tax bill that forces America to pay for that budget. And the taxes is a flat line tax. So everybody pays 13%, everybody pays 45%, everybody pays whatever they have to pay for that budget, to pay for every budgeted item so that we don't have a deficit anymore. And plus we have to pay 5% of the bill that we owe right now, which is $22 trillion. Once we do that, and people have to see it hit them in their pocketbook, then people will start paying attention, and you'll have more than 20 or 30% of people that vote in the election. You'll have more than that voting. You'll have 70%. You'll have 80%. When everybody has to start paying taxes and nobody gets a refund. Look what happened this year. People's refund went down because they're getting more money in their pocketbook. Mm-hmm. And they're like, hey, my refund went down. Well, guess what? That was more of your money to spend ahead of time. That wasn't money that all of a sudden the government just said, hey, we got this extra money, we're going to give you money. That was money that you basically gave the government as a no-interest loan. Mm-hmm. Because of the tax reform bill, you're actually getting more of that in your paycheck, so your refund is actually less, which is a good thing. You're keeping more of your income and not sharing it with the government.
You're making
so
interest
they can
on
refund
that
it.
money instead of the government making interest on you.
Exactly.
Now look, you made a comment. It's perception and all this kind of stuff. This is from a newspaper, and it's like this all around, okay? I'm not going to show whose it is. But you have a headline. Can you read the headline for me?
No, you got it backwards. It says, Trump's ex-lawyer assails president before Congress.
That is on the top part of the paper, above the fold, as they say, okay? So when you go to see it in the boxes or on the newsstand, that's what's above the fold. Above the fold is one of the most important places to be. Now, on the bottom, underneath, what do you see there for a headline?
Well, the first one says, treasure hunt intrigues city. The next one finally says, leaders project optimism. But it doesn't say who the leaders are or anything. You have to read in the small print right here where it says, Trump-Kim summit.
Here we have a major event going on that no other president has done since the Korean War, talking to the leader of North Korea for the second time. And this is a big deal. And what we have on top here is the agenda of trying to make Trump look bad by one of his ex-lawyers giving a whole... The ex-lawyer is a convicted liar, and he's up there in front of Congress spitting out more lies. So it's all this perception. If you understand and are paying attention and are aware of the truth and the facts, you'll get to read these and say, well, that's not correct. That's not true. They're lying there. They didn't say this. They didn't do that. It's just... There's an agenda going on. You've got to be smarter than the people who want to make a dollar on it.
And here's the thing about the summit. The summit was huge. People don't realize how important it was. The first summit in Shanghai last year, basically the president came away happy with it, but he basically left it to North Korea. You get rid of your nukes, and we'll get rid of sanctions. He had documentation ready to go, treaties ready to be signed this time that pushed that another step forward. Kim Jong-un, the newest rendition of the same family, came out and said, well, we'll stop working at one of our sites if you'll let the sanctions go. And the president said, I told you, you need to disarm from nuclear weapons and we'll relieve you of sanctions. Otherwise, we're going to keep sanctions in place.
But I don't blame him.
They doubled down on it, and Trump politely but firmly walked away. John Kerry spent 4 years negotiating a terrible deal with Iran, and everybody thought that was great. The president walks away and says, you want us to get rid of sanctions? This is what you have to do. Basically, we're not going to let you just slow down production of nuclear weapons. Okay, we'll let it go. We're going to make you stop producing nuclear weapons, get rid of the ones you had, then we'll remove sanctions and we'll help you become a better country.
Bill, don't you think, isn't this a possibility? Trump's a smart guy when it comes to negotiating. He already knows what he wants at the end table. And I feel very confident that when these guys sit behind closed doors, they go, listen, you want this and I want this, but we have to make it look a certain way. So obviously you can't say you're going to abide by everything I say, otherwise you look weak. So let's play this thing out. We'll say we'll start here, we'll give this. And then we'll talk here and we'll give this. We'll do a little cat and mouse kind of play, but in the end result, this is what the final thing will look like. Is that a possibility where this second meeting, if Kim was to say, yeah, okay, I totally submit, he's going to look weak. But if he says, I'm holding my ground, and then a little bit further down the road, he says, okay, we've made an agreement, we've worked it out.
I think they had a treaty, and I think they had one that would have been full, and then they had one that said, okay, you've met these benchmarks that you needed to make. You needed to meet these benchmarks, and then we can do this with you. In this case, from what I understand, North Korea met none of those benchmarks, did nothing to push the ball forward, so to speak. And as a result, it left the president where he had no other alternative. And I think you're right that they do this in certain ways to make things, to further things, and that works. But in this case,
because I remember
the thing about the North Koreans to remember is Bill Clinton signed a deal in '95. And he came out on public TV and he said in a nationwide speech, the days of North Korea trying to have nuclear weapons are gone. They will never do this again. And now they do. And they've bought rocket technology from the Chinese. They've bought it off the black market. They've bought it through other third countries, Nicaragua, Honduras, countries like that, and been able to get that. And Bill Clinton's deal, like many of his other deals, NAFTA and other ones, were useless. This one was useless, and I think the president has an agenda, and this is part of it. I don't think we were going to get anything solid to come out of this summit except for President Trump to say, just like you should do with any good used car dealer, hey, I can walk away from this too. Right. I'm still in charge.
If you look back in history and you look at all the declassified information of other events that have happened in the course of time, and you see the backdoor channels and the things that were said, that gives you a history and an idea of what could potentially be happening in this particular case. If it happened back then, you know darn well it's happening now behind the doors.
Well, the Cuban Missile Crisis is a great example.
Exactly.
Yeah. I mean, you've got to have those backdoor channels. And right now, I guarantee you, in the UN, in the halls of the UN, our ambassador and our diplomats are working with Chinese and South Korean and North Korean diplomats to try to push this deal forward. I would be willing to bet you dollars to donuts that most of the North Korean people that know anything, which is not a great majority of them, but the ones that do know anything about the way the world works outside of North Korea are working to try to make something happen. Unfortunately, 99% of North Korea thinks that the Kim family is it. And what they don't realize is, people fail to remember that at the end of the Korean War, this is how bad things are there. At the end of the Korean War, the average Korean, North or South, was the same size. Now the average North Korean is about 20 to 25 pounds smaller than the average South Korean and about 3 inches shorter. And that's because of sanctions in the society. But it goes back to what you said. As important as all of this is and happening, and reducing the chance for some idiot to have strategic nuclear weapons and ballistic missiles, as important as that is, and our media here in this country goes to the point where all they're going to cover is Michael Cohen's testimony in Congress.
Yep.
And not, we're not focusing on what the real issues are. We're focusing on, you Google go to the Yahoo page, the home page, and down the list is all news, all the news that's fit to print, and half of it easily is Kardashians. Kardashians. You people listen to Kardashians more than you do what's real important. So, not surprising. It's ugly, actually.
I'm getting an ulcer, man. Kim's not stupid. He really isn't.
No, I mean, he's educated in Switzerland and in Europe.
He wants to be in power. He likes the power. That's cool. He's building a nuclear stockpile because he'll get some type of, I wouldn't say respect, but a listening ear.
Yep.
He's got a place at the table, the poker table, to play because
he's eliminated every rival, anybody that could possibly rival him for power in North Korea or outside. His uncles, his brother, he's killed them all. I mean, there is nobody to stand up to him, which is exactly what his father did when his father took over. And no, he's not stupid by any means.
I look back at Trump here and I say to myself, that guy wants to build properties. He wants to make money. What he brought? I just told this to somebody. I was having a debate with somebody at a tire shop, and I said, "Do you know what President Trump brought to Kim the first time they met? He brought him a video of what it would look like on his shores with condominiums and all this kind of stuff, and how much money he could be bringing in." And Kim's like, "Huh." Gonna leave me alone, gonna make all this money, I'm still in power, in charge, and we're knocking this guy down. It's just okay. Let's sidebar for a second here. We got a few minutes left. I saw this. Judge rules against male-only U.S. draft. And let me see if I can find the meat and potatoes here. The Houston judge stopped short of ordering the selective services system to register women, but sided with the San Diego men's advocacy group that challenged the government's practice of having only men sign up for the draft, citing sex discrimination in violation of the Fifth Amendment's Equal Protection Clause. And what I'm reading that for is this. A lot of women out there want to be just like men. Okay?
Up until a point.
But when you got to sign that card, like I made my boys make sure to do when they were 18 years old, I remember when I was 18, on the day I turned 18, I went to the post office because I was so proud to be eligible to sign that card to say, here I am if my country needs me. And I told my boys, you're going, obviously you have repercussions if you don't do it.
Yeah.
But you need to do it because you're a patriotic individual and you're going to do what you have to do just in case the country needs it. But man, I can just imagine what would happen if the women were forced to go sign up when they're 18, eligible for a draft, if it ever was needed to be done.
I heard several folks complain about it, and then of course having served for 14 years and served right alongside of some pretty outstanding women, just like some pretty outstanding guys. I don't know anybody that I served with, male or female, that thinks that's a bad idea to have the women register too. If the men are going to register, the women need to register. Where you get the ones that don't want to are, the National Organization of Women. Whoa. Y'all are taking this way too serious. We want all the same things you got, but not that.
I want to make something clear. I think what I said kind of may have come out the wrong way. I am all in favor for a woman who wants to serve. I have no problem with that at all. I'm very honored and proud that women go in there, but I don't want them in combat units. Sorry, don't want it. Too many complications. Men are men. Men protect our women, okay? I don't want my woman in a position where she can get killed, raped, molested, interrogated, or whatever. They need to be out of the combat zone. That's my personal opinion. What do you think about that?
I think definitely there are certain jobs that I don't want women in. I had to go to SEER school, and if you don't know what SEER school is, it's Search, Evasion, Rescue, and Escape. It's a survival camp with a prisoner of war camp, and we actually had women in our deal. And I talked to guys that went in before women were allowed in, and they said they just couldn't imagine. And it is awkward to have women there because
they strip you down naked.
When I went, we actually were segregated as soon as we were caught or had to give up. I was really good at evading, so I had to give up. But we were actually separated, and we were still in that transitional period when women were first allowed in certain combat roles. Flying at that time was really about the only combat role they were allowed in. So we had to let them into SEER school, but we were segregated. They went to a different section of the SEER school, so we weren't naked together, and we weren't put into those kind of situations because they didn't know how to handle it, and I don't know how to handle it now because that's that's a classified school as far as what actually goes on at that time. We could talk about it, and it's not a big deal now, but if you're still in that school and you're going through it currently, it's still classified because of the countries that we face as enemies. At the time that I went through, it was still the big bad Russians, and we were worried about that. We weren't so much worried about the Arabs or the Arab contingency, but putting women through that, I always thought back to myself, what if that woman would have been in the camp with me? I mean, I was waterboarded with my senior ranking officer standing beside me, and they were trying to get him to answer questions by watching me be waterboarded. I always thought, just ask me the question. I'll tell you anything you want to know. But I couldn't imagine standing there watching what could happen to a female being raised in Texas and having the strong sense of, just not chauvinistic, but just chivalry and the way we're raised here in the South and pretty much in America, and then to see a woman treated like that. We talked about on Bleacher Bum Radio this morning a guy who was one of the best wrestlers in Colorado and wouldn't wrestle in the state Colorado meet because women don't have a wrestling division, so women wrestle with the guys, and he didn't want to wrestle the girl because he didn't feel like you should treat a lady like that.
Amen.
So he was 27-6 this year. He only lost to one guy. He forfeited 5 of those matches to women and 2 of them in the state tournament and didn't place, and he was one of the favorites to win. We have that, so having women in combat scares me. But this right here, where the judge rules on this, that's been a long time in coming. There's been a lot of guys that have said that I've heard, and a lot of women I've said that. Fine, if you want to be in combat roles, that's great, but you've got to also be eligible for the draft. You've got to be able to serve, whether you volunteer or whether you're drafted.
You know just as well as I, if you have a fellow soldier, female soldier, let's say it's in our unit, and she gets captured, you were going to get emotionally enhanced to want to go save this person, okay? You're going to do stupid things to get this person back because it's a woman. If there's any man left in you, that's what you're going to want to do.
Yeah,
okay?
It's going to be, and if you don't, it's going to be, if you're ordered not to or you don't, it's going to be in the back of your head the whole time that, man, that's still out there, that's hanging. And it is difficult. We talked about that often. I had women, I was a naval air crewman, and we flew in combat, and I had women that flew with us, and we often talk about how we would handle that or how we might or might not be able to handle that if something was to happen. And so it's a realistic thought.
And if it does happen, where women actually go and they're holding the rifle on the front line, okay, there cannot be a reduction in standards. You have to be.
That's right.
Everybody has to be equal. You can't lower the standard to be equal. A standard was set there for a certain reason for men, because I guess men can do a lot more when it comes to physical stuff. Yes, there's a few, like the Brienne of Tarth on Game of Thrones, she can handle anything, right? But not every woman is like that. So you have women who are women and like to be women, and they can't handle the dirtiness of war, and it would cause. I just don't like it. Don't want.
I remember I had one young lady that worked for me. She's not a young lady. She actually just retired this week. And her goal was to beat us, was to beat our standards, was to make the male standards. And we took our physical readiness test one time, and the girl that was facilitating it for us, she told Laura, she said, you can stop, you're done. She goes, where am I? And she said, you're like at 49. She goes, I need 4 more. And she goes, no, you've already passed your doing push-ups. She goes, you're past yours. She goes, no, the men's is 54. I need 4 more. And so she pumped those out. When she got there, she was done.
That's a rarity.
It is. It really is. It really is.
Women. And there are some women who are built for combat. I understand that. It's just that when you put it on a larger scale,
it needs to be everybody.
It has to be everybody. It's got to be a standard. All right, ladies and gentlemen, that was a good discussion. Thank you for coming on.
You bet.
Ladies and gentlemen, another show put in the data banks for review, and we're going to come back next week with another great show. And so please support the sponsors, support the program. Until we see you next week, keep your powder dry, and God bless.